Hello Algebra 1. Today we are going to continue reviewing graphing quadratics and also talking more about orientation and shape. So now that we've learned a bunch of information, let's go ahead and practice. First thing I want you to do is take a look at this equation right here and determine what form this is in. Okay, because this has parentheses, this is vertex form. This also means we can identify the vertex right away without using our calculator. We're going to go ahead and change this value. That's a 2, and keep our -6 the same, and that would be my vertex. I also can go ahead and I can identify my axis of symmetry right now, because that is always a vertical line, which is x equals, and it will always go through the x coordinate of the vertex. I can also go ahead and find my orientation and shape just by looking at this equation. Both of those have to do with my a value. Since my a value 3 is a positive, I know I'm going to open up. And since my number 3 is bigger than 1, that means this is going to be a narrow graph. But now I can go ahead and verify all this with my calculator and also find the y-intercept and the zeros. So I'll go to my y equals and, oops, excuse me one moment, don't mind me. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and type in my equation. And you can leave this 0 here. And I'm going to graph, and we can see it is definitely opening up, and this is a narrow graph. If we want, we can even check the vertex by doing second trace. This is a minimum, and we're on the left side, and then we're on the right side, and then we're in the middle. And this would round to a 2, -6. So if you feel more comfortable doing that instead of using the vertex form, you can. Now we're going to find our y-intercept. To do that, we're also going to do second trace, and our value is 0 every time for our y-intercept, and that's 0, 6. Okay, I'm also going to have to draw this, so I'm going to just do that right now. Okay, we're going to plot the vertex and the y-intercept, and the last thing we need to plot are our zeros, which we'll find now. So our zeros we're going to find doing second trace 5. Move your cursor over to your first 0 and then enter, enter, enter. So this is going to be a 0.59, 0. Watch your rounding. Make sure you label it on your graph and on the line. Okay, and then we'll do this again. Second trace 5. Move your cursor over, enter, enter, enter. And this will be a 3.41. Again, 0. So on your graph and on the line. All right, and there you go. That's our first one. Let's go ahead and try another one. Notice this one does not have parentheses. This means we are in standard form. So this also means I cannot identify my vertex yet because I'm not in vertex form. I also can't identify my axis of symmetry because I don't have my vertex. I can still do orientation and shape though, because those have to do with my a value. Okay, so my a value is -1/2. That means since it's a negative, this is going to be opening down. It also means since it's a fraction between 0 and 1, that 1/2, that this is going to be wide. But again, we're going to type this into our calculator so you can kind of verify that in just a minute. Okay, so we'll go ahead, type it into y equals, and press graph. And there it is. It's pretty wide. Let's look at that again. Okay, it's like, watch where it goes through. It really looks like it goes through the origin here. So when you draw this, I would do that. If it doesn't, then when we find our y-intercept, we'll just kind of redraw our graph a little bit. All right, I do need to see higher up, so I'm going to go to Window. And to see higher up, I need to change Y max. So I'll go to 20 and see if that does it. Yep, looks good. Okay, so now we can see, in fact, this is opening down and it is really wide. So these two answers here look great. So now let's go ahead and find our vertex, which is a maximum. Second trace, and again, we'll choose max. Left bound, okay. I'm already on the left, but I'm just going to come a little closer. All right, so again, to the left of this point right here, press enter once. Right bound, and press enter, and guess, go to the middle, and press enter, and our maximum is at 5, 12.5. All right, go ahead and label. And on the line. And now we can also go ahead and say our axis of symmetry, which is always x equals, and then our 5. Now let's go to that y-intercept. Again, y-intercept, you're also going to second trace. We're going to do value, and the y-intercept is always when x is 0. And yeah, it is at the origin. So just go ahead, and if your graph doesn't look like it goes through the origin, just kind of redraw it there. And finally, we're going to find both of our zeros. Second trace 5, enter, 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 and well, I mean, we already knew one of them. One of them is 0, 0. Okay, so our y-intercept and our x-intercept are actually the same thing here. We do have one more over here though. Second trace 5, move your cursor over. And as we move this, it might move over a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, so it kind of makes it move over, enter, enter, enter. And this is at 10, 0. All right, there you go. That's everything. All right, so now we're going to practice identifying equations based on their graph. Okay, so here are a bunch of graphs. We're going to write the equation of the parabola in vertex form. We are going to assume the parabola has a normal shape. Okay, so first step I would do is I would find the vertex. So vertex would be right here, and that is the point 3, 1. Okay, so now when you write your equation, make sure you always have a y equals. You're going to open your parentheses, and remember the x coordinate is the one that switches. So since this is a 3, when we put it in parentheses, we're going to put x minus 3, and then the y is the positive 1. That's going to go out here, and then the final thing you need to check is whether this is up or down. This is an up, so it should be a positive 1 out front. Okay, let's try the next one. Find your vertex first. That's a negative 5, 4. All right, so again, begin with the y equals. Okay, but be careful. This one is opening down. So what you should have outside of your parentheses is a negative 1. That, as you can imagine, is what people forget a lot. Change your sign for your 5. Make sure you have your exponent. Okay, that exponent's going to make us have this U shape, and then keep your 4 the same. All right, one more like that. Find your vertex. This is 5, negative 1. Also opening down, so make sure when you put your y equals, you have a negative 1 as your a value. Okay, and again, we're going to change the x value, so it'll be a minus 5. Don't forget your squared. Keep your y value the same, so minus 1. All right, so now let's look at some multiple choice. Now, if you have a calculator, you could go ahead and you could type these equations in and just find the one that looks closest. But if you don't have a calculator, you really need to understand how your a value works. So for example, in number 6, I would say this is opening down, and I would say this is wide. So first of all, I know my a value has to be a negative. So I have 8, that's a positive. Negative 8, okay, that's an option. Negative 1/8, that's an option. And 1/8, that's positive. So now you need to know when you have something that's wide. Wide is when you have a fraction between 0 and 1. And so that means that C would have to be your answer, because 1/8 is a fraction between 0 and 1. Okay. All right, now let's look at number 7. This one is more definitely opening up, and I'd also say it's more narrow compared to the first one. So let's worry about opening up first. That means our a value has to be a positive. So we're going to come through here, and I'm going to look for all my a values that are negative and get rid of them. This one is gone. Okay, the rest of these look good. The other thing that I would notice is that this equation is actually in vertex form, which means that I should be able to identify my vertex here. If I'm looking at the numbers here, these are 5s and 2s. So this would be a positive 5, which means in my parentheses it would be a negative 5. And this down here would be a negative 2, which means I'd still have a minus 2 out there. That gets rid of this one for me. Which brings us to A and D. So I have 8, versus 1/8. So again, a fraction is going to make it wide, so A would be my answer here. Okay, and finally, number 8, this is opening down. So again, go find those A values that are positive, get rid of them. And then I would say this is more narrow as opposed to wide. And so we're looking for a number bigger than 1. That's my 5. Again, that negative just means it's down. So this will be B. So now let's practice this in words. Describe how the graph would look. Use words like vertex, shape, and orientation in your answer. I'm not looking for complete sentences, but again, I do care about complete thoughts. Okay, so the first thing, let's talk about our vertex. Okay, the vertex would be a +5 and a -7. Again, remember we change this sign and keep this one the same. The shape, okay, this means wide, normal, or narrow. That's based on your A value. This is a number more than 1, so I'm going to say this is narrow. And then finally, orientation. This is also having to do with our A value. Our 2 is positive, so that means our orientation is up. All right, let's try number 10. Describe how the graph would look. Use words like vertex, shape, and orientation. Okay, so again, start with vertex. And we are changing the sign, keeping the sign. So it's going to be -2, 11. The shape and orientation have to do with your A value, which is right here. So notice we have a fraction, which is between 0 and 1 for 1/5. That means this is going to be wide. We also have a negative, so that means the orientation is negative, or down, excuse me. Orientation is down. All right, one more like this. Vertex is change the sign, keep the sign. It's going to be a +3 and a +9. Shape, all right, find your A value. It's right here. Our A value is a 1. That means the shape is normal. And finally, it's a negative, so that means our orientation is down. All right, so now you are given the description and you're going to go ahead and write the equation. Okay, I would start with the vertex just like you did before. Okay, so if the vertex is at -5, 8, you know you're going to have an x plus 5, make sure you square it, plus 8, because again, the x coordinate is the one that always changes. It's opening up, so my A value is going to be positive, and it's going to have a normal shape, so that means I have to have a 1 here. Okay, next I have a vertex at 4, -11. Again, change the sign, so -4, don't forget your squared, keep the y coordinate the same. It's a narrow shape that opens down. So since it's opening down, I'm going to have a negative. A narrow shape, you need to have a number more than 1. So that would be like a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever. All right, I'm going to just go with 3. Okay, but you could have lots of different numbers there. It just cannot be a fraction between 0 and 1. Okay, next one, vertex at 0, -5. So we change the sign. So 0, though, like you can't really change the sign for that. So you can actually just put x if you want. If you want to put x plus 0 or x minus 0, you can. But you can just go ahead and put x. Make sure you square it. Keep the 5 the same. It's wide, so we're going to need to have a fraction. And it's opening down. So I'm going to put a -1/2. And last one, I have a narrow shape opening up, vertex at -7, 0. Okay, again, you're going to change your x coordinate. Your y coordinate is 0, so if you want to put a +0, you can, but you don't need to. It's opening up, so that's a positive. Narrow shape, again, you need some sort of number more than 1, so something like this would be fine. Okay, there you go. That's your review of shape, orientation, vertex form, and standard form. Have a great day.